Welcome back to the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I'm Aaron Brightman. As always, this episode is brought to you by Knights of the Raritan, the Rutgers NIL Collective. Knights of the Raritan provides a unique way for Rutgers athletic programs to be successful in an ever-changing NIL environment. Become a member today of the Knights of the Raritan for a chance to win giveaways, unique experiences, exclusive events, invites, and more. Help Rutgers student athletes with NIL. You can subscribe to the free newsletter. The link is in the description of this episode on whatever platform you are listening or watching this from. Thanks so much for doing so. And in terms of Rutgers football, landing its first recruit of the 2026 class on Monday night, quarterback Gavin Sidwar, 3-star from Pennsylvania, plays for powerhouse LaSalle College, same high school that current running back Sam Brown came from, former 4-star, and wanted to talk about that as well as some hoops recruiting. Disappointing day on Monday for Rutgers men's basketball, and then a lot of other things going on within the world of Rutgers athletics. Hard to believe it's July 2nd and 3rd here, recording late Tuesday night. I'm off this week, so my schedule is a little bit different, but it's hard to believe there's this much content to cover. Olympics we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some coaching searches. Multiple things. Also, Rutgers formally announcing the Big Ten Medal of Honor winners on Tuesday. But let's start with Sidwar, the quarterback. Sidwar has a lot of powerful offers. They include Duke, Indiana, Maryland, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, Virginia, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, South Florida, also an offer. It sounds like it pretty much came down to Rutgers and Syracuse, with Sidwar ultimately deciding to become a Scarlet Knight. Some things that stand out about him on film is he's very fundamentally sound. He makes very good decisions. He's very accurate. He completed 65% of his passes. As a true sophomore last season for LaSalle, he was a freshman starter for them. So a 2-year starter already with 2 years left. But through almost 300 passes as a sophomore, completed 65%, had 29 touchdowns. He's a true pocket passer. He's not mobile per se in terms of like a true dual threat, but does move out of the pocket a little bit under pressure, but just seems extremely poised and has a really good feel. And I think that for taking another quarterback named Gavin, I think that is one thing that really stands out, is that you're getting a guy that looks pretty seasoned. And also the fact that when he does arrive at Rutgers, he's going to be a 4-year high school starter. So he's going to have a lot of experience and a lot of time under center. He's just going to be coming in at a level that you would hope allows him to kind of hit the ground running. Obviously, the Big Ten, college football, completely different level. But just in terms with Kirk Ciarrocca as offensive coordinator, it feels like he's very much in tune with the mental side of things, with the cerebralness of his quarterbacks, how they're able to interpret the game, how they're able to make reads, how they're able to make decisions. And Sidwar seems to check a lot of those boxes. He also competes in 7-on-7 competition. He was recently at Rutgers, is also a teammate of current Rutgers commit Vernon Allen, a highly regarded receiver in the 25 class. So pretty cool there in terms of making that connection already. Certainly high upside, isn't super highly ranked, has a legitimate offer list there. But in terms of his ranking, I mean, his player grade average is not particularly high. It's at 85.78 on the 24/7 Sports Composite. Consensus 3-star prospect, rated 469th nationally, 41st best quarterback, is 16th in Pennsylvania, which is no joke. Pennsylvania, obviously a hotbed traditionally for high school football players and prospects for the Power 4 level. And being ranked 16th, especially as a quarterback, certainly gives some reason for optimism. And it just feels like, in terms of how he looks on tape and all the intangibles and things, I mean, 6'3", 180, good size there. It can make the deep throw. You know, he doesn't seem to be elite in any one category, but he seems very solid and just good at pretty much everything. And again, I think his ability to lead an offense, read defenses, make decisions, being able to be accurate, he does seem like the type of quarterback that Kirk Ciarrocca is looking for, Greg Schiano, in terms of a guy that can move the chains, that's competent, that limits mistakes, that has command, and poise. They are now showing a trend of locking in their quarterback for the class very early on in the cycle. It goes back to AJ Surace, now on campus as part of the current team. He committed in February of his junior year. Then you have current commit in the 25 class, Sean Ashenfelder. He committed last fall right at the start of his junior season. And then now you have Gavin Sidwar, who's committing in the summer before his junior season. So there's something to be said about locking in your quarterback as kind of the rock of your class. Even if none of these guys were more than 3-star recruit. But again, all of them have had legitimate offer lists. And in a lot of cases, Surace was certainly true. Ashenfelder, it seems a little bit less. Also, he's down in Florida. But in terms of Sidwar, it sounds like, he's going to be very vocal in terms of helping to build the class and help recruit the class. So you want a quarterback that is committed and locked in, and to do so this early in the cycle certainly has its advantages. I do think it's interesting, and this is not a criticism. This is more of just looking at the landscape. Rutgers was very much in the mix for DePaul Catholic's 4-star quarterback, Derek Zammit, who was on campus recently for 7-on-7 competition. He's taken several unofficials. He is top 5 recruit in the state in the 26th class in New Jersey. Obviously, a big North player. And now this puts them out of the mix for him. So it's very interesting in terms of, listen, they've only offered 3 quarterbacks in the class. That included Zammit, Sidwar, and Samaj Beals from Roman Catholic, Pennsylvania. He actually was unrated. Doesn't have any rankings, but I mean, he's already got interest from Alabama and a reported offer. So he's someone that could just fly up the ranks. But in terms of locking in now on Sidwar, that obviously puts you out on Zammit. They obviously like Sidwar very much to take him this early. But it does, raise an interesting point just in terms of they're getting a guy that seems good, but doesn't have a top, 20 ceiling in the class. Just from a recruiting standpoint, that doesn't mean it's going to translate at the next level. It doesn't mean that Sidwar won't have a better career than Zammit. But in terms of ceiling, in terms of how things are projected, right now, Zammit projects as the higher rated quarterback. And they were heavily involved with both. Now, maybe they felt that they, with Sidwar locked in, Zammit, hard to know. I mean, obviously he was being recruited by a lot of power forward programs as well. It's risky to, run the line with Zammit and then end up empty-handed at the end. And I think Shiano and his coaching staff have shown a lot in recent classes, just in terms of knowing their fits, going after targets that they feel make sense and want to be at Rutgers. And that's what they've done. And there's some real value to that. So just pointing out that aspect of it, I thought it was interesting because you've been reading a lot about Zammit and really liking Rutgers and being, visiting several times. And Sidwar is a guy that, kind of emerged and kind of came to be very quickly. They offered him in early May. He took a visit in June. He was on campus for 7-on-7. They got to watch him throw. They've watched him throw a couple times. And then, boom, he commits. So that moved rather quickly. And here they are. So Gavin Sidwar, the first commit for the 26th class. Rutgers recruiting continuing to move forward in a positive way, and more to come on him. It'd be very interesting to see, in terms of his junior season. He plays for, I think the other thing too is in terms of playing, potential 4-year starter, but also playing at a local powerhouse. He's going to be a seasoned guy coming in. And I think that now you have 2 years to help his development, obviously remotely, but just in terms of his ability to be able to visit the program now, and to be able to be somewhat involved just in terms of a learning curve and understanding the system and seeing things in action. Certainly a positive there. Shifting to basketball, Rutgers men's basketball entering Monday as a finalist for 2 4-star prospects, Dorian Jones, shooting guard out of Ohio, and then Jalen Harrell, small forward from New England. And ultimately, Rutgers missed on both prospects. Harrell, much less of a surprise, did extend his recruitment recently. Rutgers was reportedly, very much in the mix and pushing hard for Harrell. Ultimately, he decided to go to Providence, where he was kind of always projected to go. Xavier made a late push as well, but Rutgers missing out on Harrell. But the big news was Dorian Jones, shooting guard. Obviously, no shame in losing him to Ohio State. He's an Ohio native. There was, I had been hearing a lot of really positive things. He was super high on Rutgers after his visit. Rutgers was super high on their chances with him based on everything they were hearing from him. And it turns out that this is reportedly from Mike Broadbent, Richie O'Leary, the Knight Report, saying that, he did actually tell Rutgers he was going to commit and then ultimately did not at the last second. Ohio State ultimately landed him. It's impossible to know what happens behind the scenes this day and age with the transfer portal, with NIL, with high school recruitment in terms of how the portal impacts them. So disappointing for sure. It does sound like the staff did everything they could on this one, and they felt really good about it. And the thing about Dorian Jones is that he's a top 70 recruit. He was number 50 on ESPN. He was number 60 on Rivals, number 67 on 24/7. On 3 had him a lot lower, but he's a total Steve Pikiell player. He's less offensive. He has a 3-point shot. He's been hurt on the AAU level in terms of he plays for the EYBL and hasn't had the best spring, but looked good in the last session in May. Rutgers really liked him. Rutgers went and saw him play on this past Sunday. And again, they were all in on him. And he's the type of player that his ceiling will rise if he can gain some consistency offensively. But he was a defensive stalwart. He could defend multiple positions. He was very athletic. He could get out and run. I'm sure they envisioned him on the press and being out in transition. And just was a hard-nosed, high-motor player on the court. Is a player that looked like, development-wise, could really get good down the road. But ultimately, Rutgers missing out on him. So we'll see if Rutgers, continues to pursue him or not. But in addition, Nigel James is a point guard they've been after for a long, long time. And he initially, a lot of people thought Rutgers was in the driver's seat there. There's a really strong family relationship there with TJ Thompson, the Rutgers assistant. And now Charlie Donovan predicting that he's going to end up at Marquette. So those are 3 guys that they've been in on for a while. And specifically Harrell and James, and not looking like Rutgers is going to ultimately land any of the 3. So certainly disappointing. I know online people nervous about the 25 class not being able to kind of balance out or complement the 24 class that Rutgers currently has, top 3 class nationally, obviously with Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. But you got guys like Lathan Somerville, Dylan Grant, and Bryce Dortch. Certainly promising futures there. And it's early in the 25 cycle in terms of, yes, you would love to have 1 or 2 commits going into the school year, but Rutgers is still very much involved with some other highly regarded prospects. They were eliminated by Darius Acuff officially last week. His cousin, obviously, Tyson Acuff, who broke his foot last week as a grad transfer coming in. So Darius Acuff, someone they've recruited for a long time, has eliminated them from contention. Really just in on the Blue Bloods at this point, arguably the best point guard in the class. And then you have Trey McKenney, who took an official back last October. Rutgers is still in on him. He's a top 20 recruit. That would obviously be huge. They had a visit last week from 6'6" wing Mason Blackwood. His offer list is just blowing up. Rutgers firmly in the mix there. He's a 4-star wing, 125th nationally, 28th wing, 4th in New Hampshire per 24/7 Sports. And their composite rankings, 158th and 34th best small forward. Just since May, he's picked up offers from Boston College, Northwestern, West Virginia, Rutgers, Penn State, Wake Forest, UVA, Virginia Tech, and Washington. And they had him on campus last week. So that is certainly encouraging. And that's a kid that, yes, he might not be as highly ranked as the guys I mentioned, but top 150 is legit. And, he could end up being a consensus 4-star as well. So that is encouraging. And then also a consensus 4-star wing, Kelvin Oda from South Kent School in Connecticut. He's got a composite score of 96.73. He's number 78 nationally on the composite for 24/7 Sports, number 12 wing, number 2 in Connecticut. He's obviously got a very strong offer list as well. Marquette, Creighton, Iowa, Penn State, Texas A&M, Xavier, and of course Rutgers. He has locked in an official visit the last weekend of September when they play football plays Washington. So that's encouraging too. So we've seen this staff adjust. We've seen this staff being able to move on when they have recruiting losses. And basketball is the type of thing where, you're going to have recruiting losses. If you can go 3 for 10 with top 150 recruits, you have a great class. And right now, Rutgers, is firmly in the mix for 6, 7, 8 guys. Darius Adams is another, 5-star guy. They're out on him now. They've been in on a lot of elite talent and very good talent in the 25 class. Nothing's landed yet, but obviously there's plenty of time there. And also just with the season that they could have, seeing how Dylan Harper responds, how Ace Bailey responds. And again, you also have the transfer portal. So looking at the potential 25-26 roster for Rutgers, they're going to have some spots to fill. And obviously you have to, retention needs to be really strong. But you need to land 2-3 top 150 guys, in this class. That should be the expectation, I think, year after year now for Rutgers basketball. Obviously, NIL is a huge factor. If the NCAA ruling from the House sticks and, all of a sudden student athletes start to get paid, that will be an interesting thing in terms of how the school split those payments. So those are all factors, and that is going to be key to watch. But obviously disappointing, no doubt. The Dorian Jones saga, certainly an interesting one. We'll see how that ultimately plays out. But this staff is resourceful, and they are in on a lot of top prospects in the 25 class. So although it might be a little uncomfortable that Rutgers hasn't landed someone yet, and again, Nigel James, they're not out of the woods there. It certainly sounds like things, they're no longer the favorite, but you can't rule out Steve Pikiell when it comes to defensive first, gritty guards, and strong family connections. So we'll see what happens there. Moving on to some kind of miscellaneous notes here for Rutgers athletics. The Big Ten Medal of Honor winners for Rutgers: Cassidy Spillis of women's lacrosse, Shane Knobloch of men's lacrosse. 110th year that the Big Ten has given out this honor to male and female student athletes at every member school. It's the most exclusive award. It recognizes academic and athletic excellence. Knobloch finishing his career just the second 4-time All-American in program history, first team All-American for this past season. He was named the best midfielder in the country by USILA. And then Cassidy Spillis, the all-time leading scorer in program history. Congratulations to both of them. Some Olympics news. Rutgers' Rudy Winkler, Big Ten champion a few years ago, has made his 3rd Olympic team in the hammer competition. He finished 2nd at Olympic trials. So congrats to him. He's a former national champion from Cornell. Was a grad transfer at Rutgers his last year of eligibility. And then also Chloe Timberg, who I had on a couple of weeks ago, national champion in the women's pole vault at the NCAA championships this past, June. Fell just short of making the Olympic team. She did make the finals after the first day of competition, finished 6th out of 24 competitors. Extremely solid performance, but falling short of making the Olympic team. She said in our podcast interview that she was planning as of now to take a red shirt for next year to kind of just, get her body right, take some rest, to work on every aspect of her craft and really revamp herself. Then going into her last year for the 25-26 season. So we'll see if that sticks. But congratulations to Chloe Timberg for a heck of a few months here. NCAA national champion, and then now finishing 6th in the Olympic trials. And then Rutgers also had Jamison Woodall there. He ran in the 400 hurdles, did qualify after the first round, advanced to the semifinals, ultimately did not make it from there. But congrats on him on being in the trials and making the semifinals. Also, former Rutgers wrestler Sebastian Rivera, Northwestern, then grad transfer at Rutgers, had a great run for the Scarlet Knights. He's going to be the flag bearer for Puerto Rico at the upcoming Paris Olympics in the end of July. So we'll have plenty there just in terms of tracking Rutgers athletes at the Olympics. Also, former Rutgers women's basketball player Kalia Copper was named to the women's basketball team. So we'll be following her in Paris as well. And then still waiting on some coaching search news in terms of assistants for baseball. Rutgers baseball still looking for a pitching coach now. And then also wrestling, of course, associate head coach Donnie Pritzloff becoming the head coach of Columbia and waiting to see who Scott Goodell replaces him with. Those are two key hires for two programs that are looking to take another step forward next year. So we'll have plenty more on there. Baseball's added a ton of transfers, kind of waiting it out till that slows down so we can kind of cover it all at once in an episode. Women's soccer just added some transfers. There's a lot going on, and I'll cover more of it in July. Great month to kind of catch up on things, have some other things planned for this month as well. If you didn't see my interview with Jordan Durkak, Rutgers men's basketball player, Northeast Conference Player of the Year at Merrimack last year, that came out on Monday. Check that out. This is coming out Wednesday morning, and I'll have something out around July 4th, maybe a little bit later, just to talk about Rutgers being now 10 years in the Big Ten. Big Ten also adding the 4 Pac-12 schools on July 1st, but just looking back on some memories of Rutgers in the first 10 years and also what's to come in the decades to follow now for the future of Rutgers athletics. I'll have an episode out on that soon. As always, really appreciate everyone tuning in and watching or listening to the Scarlet Faithful podcast. Hope you have a great July 4th week. I'll be back soon, and thanks so much for listening once again.